Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, is with us on this very busy news day. Mr. Speaker, you know, I had you on this program on 9/11. I've had you on this program on other news days when, in fact, another terror attack has taken place. Here we have it in London. I've been giving out crime statistics since the migration of people from countries like Syria and elsewhere have been absorbed into the European population. We talk about the Islamization of Europe. And then we have a debate in this country about building walls and vetting refugees. Do you see it all interconnected here?
Well, sure. So, look, it's all the same crisis. You have people who want to destroy Western civilization, people who want to impose their values and their way of life, and they're prepared to kill to do it. And we see this, you know, all across the world. It's a really, really deep problem. And I think that we have to confront the fact that this is not going to go away. We can talk about ISIS, but ISIS is one tiny piece of a worldwide problem, and we're going to ultimately have to have a grand strategy to defeat the worldwide movement as well as to defeat components of it, whether they're in Syria or Iraq or Afghanistan or what have you. I also think it's very important to recognize that we in the United States have every right to defend ourselves. I'm stunned when people explain to me, this judge, for example, in Hawaii, that we somehow owe it to the entire planet to allow them to come here as long as anybody from their country is here. I mean, this is the sort of invitation to a disaster that you would think responsible people would never engage in, and it tells you how bad some elements of our left are. They don't, no matter how many attacks you see, they don't seem to get it.
It's so sad. I mean, you know, Boston Marathon, you know, of all the talk about Russia, the Russians warned us about the Tsarnaev brothers in that case, and we didn't listen to them. Then you have Chattanooga. Then you have Fort Hood, workplace violence, of course. Then the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, San Bernardino, and all over Europe, from Germany to France to Great Britain to Belgium and all throughout Europe. The crime statistics have more than doubled almost everywhere. And America is on the precipice, and in the Obama years was making the same mistake as Europe has made over the years. And look at how difficult it is for the president, even though he has the statutory authority and the authority as commander-in-chief to protect the country. You know, well, then the liberals just go judge shopping in Hawaii or Washington, knowing that it's then going to be appealed to the Ninth Circuit, which is one of the most overturned courts in the country, and then we have to push it all the way to the Supreme Court. In the meantime, thousands of people come in unvetted into the country.
So, I mean, it seems to me that you've got, but we need to understand this. There are people placed in the government. This is one of the places where the Trump team has got to get to be much more aggressive and, I think, much more determined. There are folks who permeate this government who believe in exactly the things Donald Trump is opposed to, and who believe in putting Americans at risk rather than being honest about the dangers in the world. And these folks have to be rooted out and dismissed. And I think we underestimate, and this, of course, is part of what I think this shocking news story, which I frankly only saw in the last 10 minutes, that the head of the Intelligence Committee in the House is now saying that, in fact, Trump was part of a collection process and was under surveillance. I mean, you have to say to yourself, what the devil is going on when the FBI director gets up, the head of the National Security Agency gets up, and tells us things that are apparently either they're ignorant or lying. And how does the system get so totally out of control? And this is all part of the same problem. You have generals and ambassadors and people who over the last 8 years have been told by Obama and his team, you will never say the words, radical Islamic terror, or you will be kicked out of the service or kicked out of the State Department. So they've all learned this mind-numbing language, and they've all learned how to sort of say things very carefully and make sure you don't hurt anybody's feelings. Meanwhile, as you're pointing out, you have people getting killed in London. We now discover, as has happened often in the last couple of years, that Donald Trump's tweets may have been accurate, and all of the attacks of the New York Times and the Washington Post and the news media and the Democrats may turn out to be false.
Mr. Speaker, for 2 weeks now straight, I have been putting on radio and television John Solomon, a 20-year vet with the AP, Sarah Carter, 20-year foreign investigative journalist on this program. That we have been telling everybody that there were two specific warrants issued, one a FISA warrant, one a regular warrant. In fact, we knew this surveillance took place. We also knew that surveillance of Trump's server took place in Trump Tower. And we've been reporting all of this. Everybody in the media has been wrong. Donald Trump, okay, maybe he used the word wiretap, but it really was surveillance. Now we're parsing, and now we're splitting hairs.
I hate to tell you, I'm reasonably bright, and I used to be on the Gang of Eight looking at secrets. I don't know that I would know the difference between wiretap and surveillance. I mean, I think somebody who walks in and says, well, we didn't technically wiretap you because, your cell phone doesn't have a wire. I mean, that's a person you just want to punch in the head. That's goofy.
Well, it is. But when the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes is now confirming that he's calling it incidental collection of communications. Now, there's very specific, we have the Espionage Act, there's very specific language that says if an American is picked up in the process of surveilling, say, a foreign target or an ambassador or, let's say, Vladimir Putin, because everyone's obsessed with Russia, and they notice an American is on the call, they are supposed to minimize their listening, number one, of who the American is. Number two, standard practice is that when they write up a report that you don't name who the American was. You just say an American. And the third thing is it's never supposed to be leaked. And where the Solomon Carter investigation seems to be leading us to is that not only was part of this political, the entire narrative that Russia and the Trump campaign colluded, even though there's not been one shred of evidence that the media has been running with now for 8 months. But on top of that, that in fact, that in every single case, it seems to be that only a top security clearance individual could have known the things that are being leaked. That's problematic.
By the way, it also makes me wonder, though, how does Trump know all this? I mean,
because Trump
he somehow, I don't know if he gets it just by intuition or if he has a source, but he somehow weeks ago was ahead of everybody. They all ridiculed him and attacked him.
They're still doing it.
But if it turns out now that he was totally right and they were wrong, I mean, I think that'll be just an amazing turnaround, and one that we ought to really think about how to drive home for the country. That here you had the entire elite media, all of the Democrats, some of the Republicans, and the civil service all chanting, "Why is he doing this?" And it turns out, well, he's doing it because he's right.
Well,
that will be amazing.
That is going to be the way it turns out, and I actually think it's going to backfire even further. I think by the time we get to the end of this story, you're going to see a political quotient involved here at a very, very high level. That's my bet on this, and don't bet against me. I'm often right. All right. More importantly, so at the bottom of this half hour, we have two Freedom Caucus members, Jim Jordan and Dave Bratt, and they are steadfast. They have been meeting, not with the leadership in Congress. They have pretty much ignored the Freedom Caucus. They have the votes, they've told me, and they even have built a hidden cushion, I've been told, that they will stop this bill tomorrow, and that they've heard very little to nothing from leadership. Donald Trump and Mike Pence have reached out to them continuously throughout the process, and that they're going to vote against it unless they get a few specific changes.
I don't understand where we are, and as you know, I used to be the Republican whip, and after that I was the Republican speaker. It will be a major mistake for Speaker Ryan to bring a bill to the floor if he doesn't have the votes. The last thing you want to do to a brand new president is march him up the hill and have him lose and then have to march back down again.
My question is, why aren't they? Well, I got to take a break here. Hang on 1 second. We'll come right back and I'll pick that up.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Speaker, stay right there with us.
Hannity Headline. A bite-sized version of the show that you can take with you everywhere you go. To sign up today for Hannity Headlines, go to Hannity.com.
And as we continue, we're in Chicago today at AM 560, The Answer, and our many thanks to our affiliate here for all their hospitality. 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. At the bottom of the hour, we have two Freedom Caucus members. Freedom Caucus saying they do not have a deal, and they do have the votes to stop the health care bill from passing tomorrow. One of our top three stories today, obviously the terror attack. We're monitoring the very latest out of London. And Devin Nunes, the House Intelligence Committee chairman, confirming that, yes, Donald Trump was surveilled in November, December, and January. The media has been wrong. All right, Mr. Speaker, you were saying that if, in fact, the Freedom Caucus, and again, they complain that the leadership barely reached out to them during this process, that if they don't have the votes tomorrow and they risk a loss on this vote, that they shouldn't bring it to the floor. Why don't they just reach out to the Freedom Caucus and give them the three things that they want right now and get it done?
They're going to have to bring it to the floor sooner or later. I mean, you know, I do not understand why people haven't sat in a room and worked out an amendment that would guarantee passage of the bill. They're very close, and the folks, and I just checked this morning, and know that the leader of the Freedom Caucus wants to vote yes. I mean, none of these guys want to stop Donald Trump, and they're very frustrated. And so, to be honest, I don't understand why they're where they are. If, in fact, Speaker Ryan has the votes, that's fine. But it struck me that there's a little bit of a gamble going on here, and I don't think it's right to put the president in a position where he risks a loss at the very beginning of his presidency. This is fixable, and frankly, I have been told, at least one of the things, the argument is, well, it won't get through Senate reconciliation. It doesn't matter. That's the Senate's problem. That's not the House's problem. If they have something that they can do that will allow the Freedom Caucus to feel in good conscience that they can vote yes, the fact that Mitch McConnell can't build it in the Senate is Mitch's problem. He'll fix it. Now, when you get to conference, you're in a different place. But they now know where their problems are, and by the time they get to conference, they'll have had weeks to sort this out and figure out what is a conference bill that can pass the House and the Senate. I'm really perplexed that we don't see more flexibility right now on just getting something to 216 votes. And by the way, I've always felt like you need to be at 219 or 220 just because somebody may not quite keep their word.
Yep. Well, I got to tell you something. From my perspective, I would have worked with those guys from the beginning because they have the support of a lot of people. And I give all the president credit. When I asked Mark Meadows, I said, well, what's it been like negotiating with the president? What's it been like negotiating with the leadership in the House? Well, he said, Trump gets an A+++. He said, well, the House never contacts us, the House leadership. Isn't that bizarre?
I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. It's not the way I think that it works in the long run. My model has always been listen, learn, help, and lead. And I think that you have to approach it from that standpoint. And I think that if you don't listen and learn, it's very hard in a free society to lead. It's just a practical reality.
All right, Mr. Speaker, you're going to join us tonight. We have all these stories breaking. We'll have the latest, obviously, out of London. We'll talk about Devin Nunes' comments that, yes, Donald Trump was surveilled. By who? Why? We'll maybe have more details by then.
Well, it's going to be an amazing show tonight because you have so many things moving in parallel that are real right now, right this minute.
And, of course, the health care bill. All right, Mr. Speaker, as always, thanks for being with us.